Imagine that, for exactly 600 years, you are constantly fighting against kings, sultans, crusader armies, a rising Europe. Borders are constantly changing, and armies keep marching non-stop from the Balkans to the Arabian deserts. And do you know the craziest part of it all? They don't go bankrupt while doing it. We all think that massive empires collapse because they lose wars, but actually, what destroys great nations is not swords and shields. It's bad budgets, failing logistics, and leaders without vision. The Ottomans realized this very early on. Instead of pouring out too much money and building massive armies like the European kingdoms did, they built an incredible system where war paid for its own expenses. Let me explain this to you a bit. War as an income stream, not an expense. Let's go to the beginning. At first, they consisted only of Osman Bey and a few thousand horsemen around him. But as Byzantium was collapsing and the Mongols were retreating, they were in the right place at such a right time that, of course, the issue wasn't just military genius. Every new territory they took meant fresh resources and taxes. So for them, war wasn't an expense, it was a direct source of income. Then they sat right on top of those famous trade routes between Europe and Asia. Think about it. You are the toll booth operator on the richest route of the era. Silk, spices, weapons. Whatever passed through there, the Ottomans took their tax. Money was practically flowing like water. The real magic, the Timar system. But the real genius part starts here. Okay, you have money, but how are you going to feed such a massive army every day? Salaries are the biggest curse of a state budget. The Ottomans said, let's not give the soldiers cash salaries at all. So what will they give? Land and the right to collect taxes. We call this the Timar system. They tell a cavalryman, Sipahi, here, this village's tax is yours. In return, that man buys his own weapon, horse, and armor, and stands ready when a war breaks out. Not a single penny comes out of the state's coffers. The soldier generates his own salary, and furthermore, he ensures the security of the village, because he earns money from there. Think of a state today. If instead of paying its soldiers, it said, go collect the tax of that neighborhood, it would turn into a war zone, right? But in that era, this system worked like clockwork. The Janissaries, the low-cost elite force. And then there are the famous Janissaries, of course. Those elite infantries that the Westerners were terribly afraid of. The Ottomans financed these men very cleverly, too. You know the Devshirme system. Children taken from the Balkans are turned into soldiers through strict training. Leaving the ethical dimension of the matter aside, this is a massive advantage from a financial perspective. The state basically dumps the entire cost of taking a child from birth and raising him onto the conquered territories. Moreover, these men were forbidden from getting married or engaging in trade for a long time. So, their entire lives were the army. They created a rock-solid elite unit that was both incredibly loyal and very low cost to the state. The peak and the collapse. With these systems, every conquest paid for the next one. The state monopolies they established on things like salt, tobacco, and coffee, and the tributes coming from vassal states made the treasury overflow. For centuries, the empire sustained itself entirely, completely free of debt. But all good things come to an end, my friend. By the 1700s, Europe industrialized and trade routes shifted to the oceans, meaning no one passed through the Ottomans' toll booth anymore. The Timar system became corrupted, while the Janissaries got completely rich and turned into a mafia-like rogue power. When the system got clogged, the administration was forced to transition to a European-style modern army. But that new army needed cash salaries. What did they do? They went and borrowed debt from Europe, and with those high interest rates too. You know the result. The Public Debt Administration, Umumie, was established in 1881, and the empire's entire finances fell into the hands of foreigners. Meaning, the states they once slapped around on the battlefield ended up seizing the Ottomans' treasury at the negotiating table at the end of the day. In short, the lesson we will take from history is very clear. You cannot defeat states on the battlefield. You can only finish them off in accounting books on the balance sheet. The legendary power of the Ottomans came from managing money very well. The moment that magnificent financial gear broke, that mighty tree fell too. Actually, systems never change. Today, only the uniforms of the players are different. That's all.